Welcome to Pimpy's Investment Chat, where we keep investment talk simple. And here's your host, Pimpy.
What is going on out there, peeps? Okay, so after having several discussions with people, I'm starting to realize there's confusion about how things work with exchanges and currencies and the whole 9 yards. So I thought what I would do in this video, first of all, what the role is of the World Trade Organization and how it's going to impact Iraq, the International Monetary Fund, as well as the World Bank. And then towards the end there, I will explain to you how currency exchange rates are determined. This way then, when you hear that Iraq is doing something with the World Trade Organization or with the IMF or even with the World Bank, then you understand how it affects their currency exchange rate, all right? So let's get into this. Before we get started, do me a favor and hit the thumbs up button. And if you're not a subscriber, please do so, because when you do, it helps out the channel, and I certainly do appreciate it. If you're thinking about buying gold and silver, head on over to our friends at Money Metals Exchange. The link will be down below in the description. If you are a first-time buyer and you spend more than $100, use promo code PIMPYSILVER. Yes, it has changed. PIMPYSILVER. So if you're watching this video and it's an older video, make sure you check on current videos, because the code is going to be changing from time to time from now on. Also, I can be found on other platforms. Everybody knows I have my own website, Pimpy's News Network. Over here, I post videos that I can't get away with over on YouTube. Also, I have a group on Facebook called Pimpy's Investment Chat. Over here, we do talk about gold, silver, cryptocurrencies, as well as foreign currency investments. Come on over here and join us. It's free to do so. You can also come follow me on Twitter, MeWe, YouTube, and Odyssey. The links for all these platforms will be down below in the description. So for whatever reason, if I get removed off of one platform, you could find me on the others. Okay, and another reason why you need to learn these things is so that when you hear the news, you're not relying on what these people out there in YouTube land are telling you, that all the exchange rates should change because of oil sales. You're going to learn real quick that it's not just oil sales. So the more you learn, the more weapons you have to understand what is going on out there in Iraq or any other country for that matter. This will also help you with discernment when you're listening to these so-called gurus out there talking about tier 1, tier 10 back screens, redemption centers. This will help educate you, and you'll be able to determine on your own what is right and what isn't, okay? So let's get into this. Okay, the first role is the World Trade Organization. We hear that Iraq's ascension into the World Trade Organization has been accelerated. They're excited about being a member of the World Trade Organization. We have been paying attention to their enrollment into the World Trade Organization. The funny thing is, I hear all these gurus out there saying, hey, they're being pushed through the World Trade Organization, and have no clue at all how it is it's going to help them. So let's go through this so you can see for yourself.
What is the World Trade Organization? The World Trade Organization is the global body dedicated to regulating international trade between different nations. It was founded in 1995. Also called the WTO. It comprises 164 member countries till 2021, with Afghanistan and Liberia joining in July 2016 as the newest members, plus 25 observer nations and governments. WTO agreements must be discussed and signed by most of the countries and authorised by their parliaments. However, the mission is to aid manufacturers of services and products, exporters and importers to run their businesses successfully. In addition, WTO arose from the General Agreement on Tariffs and Trade, or GATT, resulting from World War II. GATT was a crucial component of the Bretton Woods family, and it included the International Monetary Fund and the World Bank. GATT rounds were a series of trade talks that commenced after World War II to decrease tariffs and boost trade between nations. Member nations operate the World Trade Organization. The members take all critical decisions, whether by the ministers, who convene once in 2 years, or by their delegates or ambassadors, who regularly assemble in Geneva. What are the functions of the WTO? The WTO is a global agency whose fundamental aim is to facilitate that trade is easier for everyone. While in operation, the WTO has 6 primary goals: establish and maintain international business regulations, assist in the discussion and supervision of further trade liberalisation, address commercial conflicts, transparency in decision-making procedures, partnership with other significant global economic entities associated with financial management, assist developing countries in fully profiting from the global financial system. However, there can be no resolution, mediation or negotiation without the underlying WTO contracts. And the WTO's international business standards are based on these contracts, which serve as a legal framework. They tie the nation to a set of limitations that should be involved in developing future trade policies. Now, these agreements safeguard exporters, importers and manufacturers, while at the same time encouraging world governments to meet up particular social and environmental requirements. What are the pros and cons of the WTO? The history of international commerce has revealed a struggle between free trade and protectionism, and the WTO has propelled globalisation with both benefits and disadvantages. However, although the entity's initiatives have benefited global commercial development, they have harmed the local population and human rights. WTO proponents, notably multinational companies or MNCs, feel the entity is useful to business, claiming the promotion of free trade and reducing trade conflicts as advantages to the global economy. On the other hand, some believe that the WTO weakens the value of organic democracy and broadens the global wealth gap. In addition, they see deterioration in the local economy and rising external influence as harming the world economy.
Yes, that's the truth, and that's one of the cons against the World Trade Organization. So you have countries out there that are a lot more powerful than other countries. A case in point, the United States. They pretty much can influence a lot of the policies and procedures that are being regulated over there on the World Trade Organization. The whole point of the WTO is to have an independent body of governance, as well as independent of their influence. It shouldn't make a difference. There is a set standard and procedures that should be followed. When she says that the World Trade Organization isn't very good on human rights, what she's talking about is these organizations were put together to help the different countries. But instead, what happens is you have these globalists who take advantage of other nations. The reason why the United States is going to get their ass kicked here pretty soon, once the BRICS nations switch over to another reserve currency, is because we don't produce anything here anymore. One of the things that made this country strong is we manufactured everything in this country, but now we outsourced it. And why did we outsource it? Well, that's because here in this country, we have labor laws. We have environmental laws. We have unions. And with unions demanding higher wages and the environment putting on strict regulations, it was too costly for corporations to really exist here. So all of the manufacturing went overseas because over there, they don't care about their environment laws. Over there, they don't care about child labor laws. Over there, they don't care about how much they pay their employees. You got people over there working for $14 a month. You got children over there working. You have sweatshops. You have labor camps. We have China over there using their prisoners to do labor work for free. This is the part in which the World Trade Organization falls short. And it's with good reasons. It's because they're influenced by bigger nations and globalists. So what the World Trade Organization is supposed to do is to make sure that trade is fair and free for everybody. That's what they're supposed to do. Being involved in the World Trade Organization, how does this help Iraq? Well, Iraq was under all kinds of restrictions. And so what they're saying is there is no main government body in or overseeing everything that Iraq does. So once Iraq enrolls into the World Trade Organization, it opens up doors. I mean, big doors for Iraq to do international business. This also guarantees that Iraq is able to do international business. This organization will facilitate Iraq export in which countries need it and make sure that this gets done. Everything will be done through the World Trade Organization. And this is a great thing for Iraq, who is rebuilding, who is an emerging market. The World Trade Organization should be beneficial to Iraq once they've enrolled in the World Trade Organization.
On June 30th, 2015, Greece missed a major loan repayment deadline to the International Monetary Fund. The IMF provided 32 billion euros in emergency loans to keep the Greek economy from collapsing. So why did the IMF take a risk on such an unstable economy, and what exactly is the IMF? The IMF was created alongside the World Bank in 1945 as overlapping finance arms of the United Nations. The World Bank focuses on financing and investing in developing countries, as well as eliminating poverty. The IMF primarily monitors exchange rates, stabilizes international monetary systems, and fosters global financial cooperation. Since World War II, the world's economies have become interdependent on each other through trade and investment. While this helps strengthen the global financial system, it also creates weaknesses in the economic chain. When an unforeseeable crisis like a recession or natural disaster destabilizes one nation's economy, that can severely affect dependent countries. The balancing force of the IMF prevents any potential domino effect in collapsing economies. The IMF is one of several global banks that provides loans to troubled economies to promote a stable world economy. The IMF and its sister organization, the World Bank, tend to serve more Western interests, like the US and the EU, while other global banks, like the New Development Bank and the Asian Infrastructure Investment Bank, serve Chinese and Russian interests more.
So over time, what happened is countries started to realize that the IMF and the World Bank are actually controlled by the United States, which kind of rubbed some nations the wrong way. We saw the United States bullying other nations by using a SWIFT system to force nations to do what they want. Let's just face it, our country was a bully for quite some time. So what happened was China, Russia, and them decided they would open up organizations that would compete with the IMF as well as the World Bank. So the New Development Bank is their version of the World Bank. The Asian Infrastructure Investment Bank is the IMF to these other nations. So when I tell you that they're going to crush the currency of the United States, these are two of the instruments they're going to use to do this.
Interests more. In total, the IMF has 188 member states. After the global financial crisis of 2008, African countries were hit hard. The demand for imported goods from Africa declined and international growth rates slowed. In response, the IMF proactively made billions of dollars available to places like Ghana at extremely low interest rates. With this support, Ghana's growth rate increased to over 9% in 2011 and remains one of Africa's frontier emerging markets. Currently, the IMF's biggest borrowers are Portugal, Greece, Ireland, and Ukraine. The IMF also gives precautionary loans as a sort of preventative measure before things get too bad. Receivers of precautionary loans include Mexico, Poland, Colombia, and Morocco. Despite their support, the IMF has been widely criticized for allowing disparate levels of influence. This is because member nations which invest more money in the IMF get more voting rights. The US comprises nearly a fifth of all available votes because they are the largest contributor. Additionally, since the IMF is somewhat of a last resort, countries in trouble have no choice but to agree to significant austerity measures that may not necessarily be in their best interests or agree with their ideologies.
This is what I was talking about when Dr. Shabibi was going to sign the Paris Agreement. There were monetary policies that were put forward by the IMF that he did not agree with. He said that these policies were really good at keeping inflation down, but it was terrible for their local currency, and he felt they wanted to keep the local currency down so they could take advantage of it in their country, and that's exactly what they wanted to do. Also, IMF has been accused of forcing countries in desperate need of money to give up their resources if they can't pay the money back, or even if they could pay the money back, relaxing any kind of restrictions to access to their resources.
While the IMF is a powerful force within the world economic balance, it also openly serves the interests of its member countries. With so much influence in the political policies of struggling countries, it is dangerous to try and treat domestic problems with simple cash infusions and austerity measures. However, without it, countries like Greece may face worse alternatives. If Greece leaves the Eurozone over money woes, it would be devastating to all of Europe. The European Union is also at risk after Greece's refusal to accept a bailout. To learn more about the future of the EU, check out our video here now.
But the 2008 recession put a huge damper on the EU's success. For the last decade or so, Greece, Italy, Spain, Ireland, and Portugal have faced unprecedented levels of unemployment and public debt.
Well, that's just the thing of it. Most of these organizations, if ran properly without external influence, they would do wonderful for the world. But that's not the case. They are influenced, they are corrupt, and it's unfortunate. But there are benefits to being involved with them, and Iraq can benefit since they are started from scratch.
Are the roles of the World Bank? The World Bank is a group of financial organizations whose purpose is to develop member countries' economies and to reduce or eliminate poverty throughout the world. It is recognized internationally as the world's apex bank that is helping emerging markets and developing countries. What are the roles of the World Bank? In summary, its goal is to bridge the economic gap between rich and poor countries. The history of the World Bank highlights that goal. It was established by the 1944 Bretton Woods Conference following the devastation of World War II. European countries and others involved in the world were in dire need of rebuilding and reconstructing of their countries and economies. That brought about the idea of the first multilateral development bank in the world. How would the World Bank get funds to perform its roles and achieve its functions at the onset? The funds came through the sales of bonds. France was among the European countries that benefited from the loans. The bank continues to provide long-term loans for developmental projects and economic support spanning 5 to 20 years. Let's now get down to the main roles of the World Bank. From all that has been said earlier, the roles or functions of the World Bank can be categorized as follows. 1. It provides technical services and support to the member countries in various forms. It does this through the activities of its various affiliated financial organizations, Multilateral Investment Guarantee Agency, MIGA, International Center for the Settlement of Investment Disputes, ICSID, and International Finance Corporation, IFC. The Economic Development Institute and the World Bank Staff College in Washington. The Economic Development Institute and the World Bank Staff College in Washington were established mainly to help in providing such services. 2. It provides downloadable data on major economic indicators to advise about 200 member countries through the IBRD under IRD by analyzing the Annual World Development Report.
So this is why right now you're seeing the push for Iraq to continue to upgrade their banking sector, getting into a new system, making sure that it meets the international standards. It's because they have to be able to plug into all these things that the World Bank and IMF need in order to make determinations on what to do with Iraq.
These indicators include climate change from the study of the environment and energy, health issues such as life expectancy, labor, income, and education, demographics, poverty, gender, and aid effectiveness, urban development and infrastructure, government economic policy and sovereign debt, business, agriculture, and financial. These and many more are found in publications such as the World Development Indicators and Global Development Finance, the Little Green Data Book, and the World Bank Atlas. 3. It also grants loans to member countries to shore up their economy and aid infrastructural development. The bank determines the amount of loans and interest rates in addition to other terms and conditions applicable. It analyzes projects duly submitted to it by the country applying for the loan. Such countries have to repay either in reserve currencies or in their currency. Still, on loan matters, the World Bank supports private investors from member countries on its own guarantee if the bank is convinced that the loan will be used to create jobs and facilitate economic growth.
So the World Bank is who the country turns to when they need money to help with infrastructure more than anything else. The IMF is more along the lines of doing something internationally. The World Bank is more for doing something internally. Now here we go. How to determine your currency's exchange rate. I've played this before, but I'm going to do it again so you can see.
How is the price of a currency determined? Mudra Pandit has been reading newspapers and notices that the price of the US dollar has changed from rupees 50 to rupees 60 in over a month. This has puzzled him. He knows that currency prices are not fixed by the Indian or the US government. So he starts exploring this question in detail. Mudra finds that the price of a currency is closely tied to demand and supply. When the demand increases for goods, services and investments like machinery, garments or bonds that are paid for in US dollars, the price of the US dollar goes up. On the other hand, if the American Central Bank chooses to print more dollars and thereby increase the supply, dollar prices tend to cool off. An important role is played by speculations. If major players in the financial market believe that the value of the US dollar is likely to rise, they buy more of the currency, thus leading to a rise in its price. Mudra further learns that the economic and political conditions of the issuing country affect the price of the currency. If the country is going through a political conflict or an economic crisis, then the value of its currency may go down.
This is why the stability within Iraq is important. If you have terrorists running around, or you have a corrupt government running your country, or you have different factions within your country battling with one another, it's going to hold your currency down. If you have civil unrest, it's going to hold your currency down.
The value of a currency is also linked to the future prospects of its issuing country. A country is said to have good future prospects if it has inflation and unemployment under check and sound economic policies.
Now, is Iraq's unemployment under check? No. They have really high unemployment. That's why it's important for them to get started on infrastructure. Does the future look bright for Iraq? Yes, as long as they start getting their shit together and their government starts doing the right things necessary, like providing funding for infrastructure and helping with education. That helps contribute to the currency exchange rate.
Good prospects may lead to increased demand and hence higher value. Thus, Mudra learns that the price of a currency is
inflation, unemployment, demand, political stability, supply, future prospects. You can see these all play a part in the currency exchange rate. Is inflation down? Well, they're saying it was at double digits the last couple of years, although every time I look at it, it's in single digits. Unemployment is not under check. The demand for the currency, there is none. People want the dollar. That's why the market rate is so much different than the official rate. Political stability? No, we just watched Iraq go through an entire year of bickering about who is going to run the government. Supply, well, they have nothing to really offer the outside world, not yet, but they definitely need a lot of things in country. Future prospects? Look, I did a video showing everybody that over 65% of the people in Iraq over the next couple of years will be of working age. That's perfect. But their education contributes to what's going on and jobs available. So they need to improve their education a little bit. And they also need to have jobs to provide to the people. That's up to the government to make sure that it happens.
It's the result of not one, but several factors. Points to remember. Price of a currency is dependent on demand and supply. Speculations play a role in determining the price of a currency.
That's us. Outside investors demand a currency. So we're willing to give up our US dollars to have the Iraqi dinar. So the price of the currency is dependent on supply and demand. I was just explaining right now that we saw a huge difference in the market rate versus the official rate. That's because people are willing to give up more of their Iraqi dinars for the US dollar. That's the wrong direction. So there are right now more Iraqi dinars available in country than there are US dollars. Therefore, people are willing to trade more Iraqi dinars just to get their hands on the US dollar.
The political and economic conditions of the issuing country affect the price of the currency.
So the political and economical conditions. Well, we know that Iraq's GDP has grown big time and it continues to be strong. But a major part of that GDP is the fact that they rely too much on oil. So a big portion of that GDP comes from oil sales. That has to change. When people say, oh, they're economically strong, they're economically stable. No, they're not. All it takes is any huge drop in oil prices to totally devastate Iraq. We saw that happen in 2020. As far as the political Yeah, again, need I say more? We saw an entire year where two factions within the government were fighting, and it took the resignation of one just so the other one can move forward.
The future prospects of the issuing country affect the price of the currency.
65% of the population, it will be work capable. That's what you're looking for. So although the World Trade Organization is not perfect, it really just depends on what it is that Iraq has that people want. We know they have oil, and they want that bad. As a matter of fact, you have two countries fighting for it right now. Iraq used to be able to provide a lot of things in agriculture, but you can see that the water needed for them to farm has dried up. What is the resolution? Well, they're building the dam now. You have 400 dams above them keeping Iraq from getting water, so that when they finally do allow it to flow, if Iraq puts a dam where it's needed, then they won't have to rely too much on what's going on above them. They can just block the water and the farmers will be back in business. We're talking a couple years away. So for now, they're unfortunately having to rely too much on the oil sales. So we need to get the power there. We know that Iraq does not have power in all locations. So that's not very encouraging for outside investors. That's why you're seeing Siemens from Germany supposed to come in and install these big generators. But how long is that going to take? We've been talking about them now for 2 years. And now they just signed a memorandum of understanding. Okay, well, 2 years ago they did that and nothing's happened. The cool thing is right now is Biden is now pressuring Iraq to turn away from Iran to provide them with energy. So hopefully we see a push big enough to where these generators can get installed and their electricity grid set up, and people are provided electricity everywhere, and outside investors are going to want to come there and open up businesses. So their major traders are China's 23.9% of their global total, and China is focused in on their oil. India, 21.4%. South Korea, 11.8%. These three nations right here are part of the BRIC nations. The United States is only 8.6%. So let's look at the other things that Iraq has to offer. Mineral fuels, including oil. We know that gems, precious metals, cereals, fruits and nuts, food industrial waste, animal fodders, okay, machinery, including computers, aluminum, wood pulp, animal, vegetable fats, oils, and waxes, and copper. Copper is big. I think the United States needs to focus more on the copper over there in Iraq. Right now, they're not, and they rely too much, I believe it is, on Russia, which is a bad situation right now. So those particular minerals that they have to offer the world, if they can really increase that by allowing outside companies come in and help them with that. I don't know if that's going to happen. They're really stingy when it comes to that. One thing I learned about the gold is you don't have to dig very deep for the gold over there in Iraq. Recent radar shows that most all of their gold is on the surface. So the cost of mining would be really, really cheap. As far as agriculture is concerned, well, they can increase their agriculture big time by finally being able to provide water to the farmers, like I said earlier. Anyways, I hope that helps give you an understanding of what it is that we're dealing with here, what the different organizations do, and understand how that's connected to Iraq and how that all ties into their exchange rate. All right. If you have any comments, leave them down below. I look forward to them, and I'll get back at you later. I'm out.